Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Doug is here with you during our lunch and learn on a feel good Thursday. Hopefully, you all are having a great day out there. And let's see here. Okay. Hopefully, everybody's having a great day out there. It's a beautiful day here in the Alamo City. Right now, it's about 84 degrees out. It feels like springtime. It's definitely a Chamber of Commerce day. So, hey, today we were supposed to have our lunch and learn, but we're flexible here. We're doing something a little different today. You guys have seen me do these before, so I'm doing my own lunch and learn, and I'm my own guest. So, hey, you're here with Dr. Doug on Lunch and Learn, and today we're going to talk about driving. Driving, if you just think about it, driving is something that frustrates most people. Most drivers live a life of perpetual frustration. You're constantly angry at the other drivers, and you're angry at the bad day at work. Something's wrong with the kids. I mean, so many things affect how we feel in driving and all this kind of stuff. And so when you think about it, is driving a right or a privilege? And let's just start here. First of all, when you think about privileges and rights, they're part of most constitutions and democracies around the world. And most people though, they don't know the literal difference between the two, a right and a privilege. So they confuse the two concepts. And so we want to just make sure, just for today's discussion, that we're all on the same page. First of all, rights are granted by the Constitution to individuals, while privileges are those that provide immunity, benefit, or exemptions to certain people or groups. So, rights are things that everyone has as a citizen, as your franchise being a citizen. Privileges are something that are bestowed upon us by some organization, some group, or what have you. So, when you look at it like that, you know, driving is a privilege. Driving is not a right. And because in some people today, I mean, when we'll get into it in a minute here, but just keep that in mind. Rights are bestowed upon everyone by the day you're born. You're born with what they call inalienable rights, and those are things that can't be taken away from you no matter what. And so that's that. Privileges, though, privileges are something entirely different. And when you think about it, why am I even talking about this? Well, the reason this comes up is just check out these numbers. This is 2018. The whole total death toll in Texas was 3,639 people killed in traffic-related accidents. That's a person killed every 2 hours and 25 minutes. One person was injured every 2 minutes and 7 seconds. And a reportable crash occurred every 58 seconds last year in the state of Texas. Once again, driving is not a constitutional right. Your driver's license is based on your skills, and you have to follow the rules. You have to agree to follow the rules of the road. After you get your driver's license, you must continue to demonstrate your ability to drive safely on the road. If you fail to demonstrate your safety or that ability, you'll get tickets, and you may even have your license suspended or revoked. But no one has more right to the road than anyone else. And so we all have to share it equally and proportionally. If you're going to drive, you owe it to the other drivers to operate your vehicle in a safe manner. Now that sounds simple, right? Tell that to the person that cut you off today, that crossed 3 lanes to get off the exit at North Star Mall, from the left lane all the way to the right lane at the last minute, and they almost hit the barrier there separating the highway from the exit ramp. But when you break it down, driving, the whole concept of driving is not so much a physical skill as it is behaviorally based. Driving involves like perceptions, cognition, emotion, social acumen. You need all of those kind of things to operate a car. Let me break it down to you. You gotta sit behind the wheel of a car. You've got to process information that are conveyed by, there's all kinds of signs. I mean, we're like, there's an overload of information today. We got signs, and more signs. We got lines. We got curves. There are more curves in San Antonio than any city I've ever driven in. You got to steer the car. You got to make sure, and you got to look at your instrument panel. Do you have gas? Is your tire low on air or whatever? All kinds of information that you get, and you got to process all that information. And keep in mind, share the road with other drivers. Now, there are more drivers on the road than ever, and one has to wonder how so many people get from one place to the other. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. This whole thing about driving is just is it's. I'm amazed when you think 3,600 people, 3,697 people, whatever it is. When you think about the Afghan war, and people are screaming about the war and how many people are killed in the war. Well, in the entire Afghan war, it's been going on for 10 years, only 2,700 people, not only, but 27 deaths, 700 deaths. And people are not outraged over 2,700 deaths over 10 years, but they're not outraged over 3,700 deaths in 1 year in one state. Think about that. When you think about the whole thing about driving, it all hinges on traffic safety and everybody being able to work together and operate together. It's almost like a ballet. It's almost like a dance or something. But when you think about the psychology of the driver, it is the component that most affects everything else that happens in the car. So on the road and two people and everything, it's behavior, the driver's behavior, the driver's psychological makeup being that impacts driving the most. Now, think about this. This whole thing called. We'll talk about specifically. One specific aspect of driving is the prevalence of angry drivers. Now, no one likes it when they're cut off, and we just talked about that. And when someone weaves through traffic or cruises through the passing lane, some people handle drivers differently. They handle obstacles differently. Others, some handle them with grace, and other people, they react really really badly. Think about the person that cuts you off and then speeds on down the road. They're 2 miles down the road. And 2 miles later, you are still, some of us are still upset at being, that guy cut me off an hour and a half ago. Something that happens to you, think about it, something that happens to you on the road, when you get home and half an hour later, what's the first thing you do? I got cut off today. I got cut off today. I got cut off today. That's just kind of crazy. So anyway, just think about that. You mean an hour later, half an hour later, something that occurred that you didn't hurt. I mean, other than cause you to put on your brake, you still have to make an issue of it when you get home and a half an hour later. So this whole thing about road rage, it basically, road rage is a violent behavior. Some people when they get in cars, they actually think it's. I mean, you look at the kind of car some people drive. There are some people that drive vehicles and that have written on them, "I'm the king of the road" or "I'm the queen of the road." You think about this whole manifestation of a person's psych or behavior, or id, so to speak. The person that really really believes that their rights are better, that driving is a right, and that their rights supersede everybody else's right. There's a lot of them manifest themselves the type of vehicle they drive. They drive the big huge trucks with the deer pusher on the front and the big horns and the big lights and the huge tires. And when you look in your rearview mirror, it looks like they're sitting in your back seat. Those type of people. So and you think about it. Um, when people do that, how do you react? So some people will sit there and they'll slow down. Other people will speed up. And then some people will change lanes. But think about what is the most appropriate thing to do when you have a situation like that. You know, People don't think about what's most appropriate. People don't think about the courteous thing to do, the safe thing to do. They just react, and it's and reacting is not good. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit more. I'm gonna just take a little break here, and we'll be right back. Never can say goodbye. Bob Baldwin there in the background. Dr. Doug here with you on our Lunch and Learn. So we're talking about driving. Is it a right or a privilege? We already ascertained it is a privilege, not a right, even though some people may look at it as a right. And we're talking about specifically, we're talking about road rage. And road rage refers to the violent behavior of a driver of an automobile which causes accidents or incidents on the roadways. Some manifestations of road rage include sudden acceleration, braking, close tailgating, sounding a vehicle's horn, flashing lights excessively, and of course, the whole one that we all know and love, the one finger salute. But think about it. When obscenities start flying from the mouth of a parent and a child is in the back seat, or a sweet-looking older woman, is sitting in the back seat, or somebody, your mom is sitting next to you, and you start swearing at somebody, one has to make one think, what makes level-headed people do that? Like for me, for instance, what really changed my personal thing about driving or attitude toward driving. I used to drive real fast. These are a couple of the things I'm talking about right now. I used to be one of those people. I drove fast cars and it was just crazy. But one day I was driving and something happened and I was weaving in and out and somebody weaved in front of me and made me hit the brakes suddenly, and my son Jeremy was in the back seat. He was like 4 or 5 years old, about 5 years old. And I said some things that I would never say today. I just swore just a whole stream of obscenities. And my son looked at me. He says, "Dad, I thought swearing was something that you weren't supposed to do." He said that to me out of the mouths of babes, right? And I sat and thought about that for a long, long time. And I decided I need to change my attitude about driving. But that was me. Now think of all the things we just talked about. The whole thing about road warriors and the things that they do, tailgating, cut you off, all that kind of stuff. Turns out all of these actions, according to psychiatrists, can be fostered by a feeling of security. Check this out. Generated by a person being surrounded by metal with locked doors. The psychiatrists assert that drivers may develop a sense of anonymity and detachment in the confines of their vehicles. They think that they're in there, they're anonymous, nobody can see them or hear them or whatever. And actually, those people that have tinted windows are even more likely to be road rage type of people, or have the personality for road rage. And actually, when you think about the whole thing about tinted windows, they're actually more of a hazard than they are anything else. But psychiatrists said that tinted windows even further detach drivers from the situation. That makes them think that everything that they do is right. Now, cutting someone off is one thing, but when a huge gas gusher whips in front of you, it seems to make it even worse. Like those pickup trucks and things I was telling you about. Just think, when you get cut off by one of them, what's the first thing you do? Guy thinks he owns the road, right? Well, Indiana University psychiatrist, his name is Raymond Navko, would argue that a person's car is used as an instrument of dominance, symbolizing power, and that the road then becomes an arena for competition and control. So hence the term road warriors, So remember, the driver of a Hummer who just cut you off is probably dominating in other areas, he's probably a very aggressive person. He's probably the mean boss, the dad that beats his kids, and all of that kind of stuff. A common source of driver frustration on the roads comes from being stuck behind a slow or inexperienced driver, and that's the whole opposite of that's like passive aggressive. That's the opposite of aggressive. The inexperienced driver is oftenly you think about it. It's not only a person's level of aggression, but their age and how long they've been driving, how old they are, how much time, what their driving experience. So all those things go into a person's behavior, but a person's driving ability. But regardless of how long they've been driving and what they do, we all have the power to control ourselves and our reaction to them. So the person that's a novice driver, that's hopefully they're in the right lane, and even though the speed limit's 65 or 70 here in Texas, they might be doing 55. Well, you know what? Don't curse at them. Don't swear at them. Just kind of move to the next lane. Put your turn signal on. Wave at them. Smile at them. I told you, like, we have this thing called Feel Good Tuesdays. Or, I'm sorry, Be Kind to Someone Tuesdays. When you smile at a person in the car next to you, what do? They wave. They smile. You even see them relax a little bit. Just kind of try to change your demeanor a little bit. Because I'll tell you what, while on the surface, it may seem like no one cares about the 3,600 people in Texas, 3,700 people approximately in Texas who died last year in automobile accidents. one thing legislators agree to, they agree that something has to be done about driving, and so they're always trying to pass. We got all kinds of rules in the road that no one follows. There's all kinds of legislation out there, like lately now. This whole thing about phones. If you get caught talking on the phone, using texting or talking or a phone in your hand while you're driving, it's a serious fine. But people still do it. They got I think somewhere I said 36 states have on the books about hands free driving or hands free calling or talking. So there's a lot of legislation out there, but people still do it. People will still, And what did we do before we had cell phones? We would stop, pull over, and the payphone, and people don't even know what a payphone is. But that was actually the safest means of communicating. Pulling over, if you have to make a phone call, get off at the next exit, pull over to the side in a safe place, and make your phone call, and then get back on the road. Well, heaven forbid that would take too long. That's why we don't do that. Well, everything's got to be done today, and no one has time to do things safely. But you think I saw today on the news, even like with the hands-free laws and everything else, that there are studies that show that even hands-free things, voice-activated things, and all this other stuff that we can do with in our cars today, those are just as distracting, or maybe even more distracting than actually holding the phone up to someone's ear. So they're looking into that. And they're doing studies on that right now. But basically, what we're trying to do, they're trying to make things more convenient and everything else. And now they have apps. They have those safety apps that they have out now that they actually show you how fast you drive and actually record everything that you do. Well, you think people they advertise that as selling that as, you can save insurance money by doing this. Well, actually, what they're doing is they're charting your behavior. And so they can look and they pull out the information from that app and they can see, hey, that fool was driving 93 miles an hour and changing lanes every 5 seconds. Well, they've got that. And now all of a sudden, try collecting on your insurance, and they have that information in that app. But pretty soon, it's going to be a little black box in every car, and it's going to be monitoring everybody's movement. I believe that's going to happen, because there are all kinds of laws right now that are going on, and they're not going to go away anytime soon. So this whole thing about driving and convenience and everything else. Nothing's more convenient than your safety. Nothing's more. Your number one job when you get into a car is to make it to your destination safely. That's your number one objective, your number one job, your number one responsibility. Think about this: when I've done seminars about things, and one of the questions I'll ask people, I talk about consciousness a lot. How a lot of us walk around all day in a subconscious state. We purely everything we do is purely based on habits. And so, like driving, because if you drive enough, driving becomes a habit. And there are people who get from work to home and don't even remember the journey. And they might have traveled 15 or 20 miles and don't remember the journey. So one of the things I used to do on some seminars, I used to ask people, how many stoplights are there on your way from work to home or vice versa? Do you know 99% of the people in the audiences couldn't answer that question? And when you think, like I just said, your number one responsibility when you get behind the wheel of a car is to make it to your destination safely, you would think that if that's the case, traffic signals are the vehicle that helps us do that. If it wasn't for the whole management of traffic, it would really be challenging. Because you imagine going through an intersection and cars are going all kinds of ways, and you're just left to your own, like the force to get through the intersection. So traffic signals are an important part of the journey, and being aware, an aware person would know there are 7 traffic signals from home to work. That's because they will be conscious. I know traffic signals coming up at Weston, Maine, so I know I need to stop. I know I need to slow down. I know there's no turn lane. I need to get into the right hand lane. But people don't do that. They just get in their car, they put on their favorite sound, and they just drive. And whatever happens, happens. It's amazing that people make it home. But anyway, so you think about all the stuff, the safety things that are going on, the apps that they've got going on, all of the conveniences and navigation tools and everything else that they have, so you don't have to look at map books anymore. We used to have to look at map books. And think about that. The map books were never detailed, nowhere close to as detailed as the app are, the GPS app is on your phone or in your car. We had to drive map books, and you get to a road at the end of the page and say, go to page 87. and you have to flip the page. So there were people who used to have map books and flip in the other seat and next to them, flipping pages and driving and everything else. But think about it, there were less accidents then there are now. Of course, there are more people driving, so that has something to do with it too. But there's all kinds of things that are going on they're trying to do to make driving safer, because it is not a right, it is a privilege, and it is a shame that we're losing so many lives. And each of us has something that we can do about that. If we change the way that we approach driving, if we change our driving is not a contact sport. It's not football, it's not lacrosse. I mean, you can't slam dunk in a car, So just calm down and just try to be a little more measured in your approach to things. If someone puts their turn signal on there in front of you, let them get over. Fine. If you're in the left lane and someone wants to pass you, move over and let them pass. The chances are, statistically, you're going to get where you're going to get in the same amount of time, whether you change lanes or not. Whether you give the person the finger or whether you wave at them a smile, you're going to get there in the same amount of time, whatever. So let's try to do it in a way that really promotes safety. And safety is by checking your attitude when you get in the car. No matter if you got an argument with your spouse, if you had a bad day at work, when you get in the car, sit there for a minute and think, okay, I'm getting ready to drive. Deep breath, in with the good air, out with the bad air. And think about that. And if you did that, look how more relaxed you become. Everyone should do that when they get in the car. They ought to get in there and they ought to be like, there's Jacob on there. Jacob, hey, Jacob from San Antonio Bicycle. What's up? So anyway, so just think about that. So human behavior is notoriously difficult to change. I know I'm asking you to do this stuff, and no one's going to do it, especially when driving. It often seems like it's the other guy, not me, who needs to change. That person needs to know how to drive. It's their fault. It's never my fault. But in the coming years, technology is going to be able to provide all kinds of assistance. We just talked about some of them. Volvos now come with features, with monitors that steer the wheel movement and positions the accelerator. They've got governors in cars now, turn indicator activation and braking, and all kinds of automatic stuff that the car will do for you. They'll even park for you now because there are a lot of accidents, not deaths associated with it necessarily, but a lot of accidents come from parallel parking. Because people don't know how to parallel park. We got so many malls, everybody's used to pull into a stall. When you got to parallel park, that's a problem. Cars will parallel park for you now today. The Lexus has that. Volvo has that. And all these other kind of things. So let's see here. So there's so that's the other thing. There are going to be radars they put in cars. That's another thing that they're doing. They're putting radars in cars. So if there's an obstacle in front of you, like a deer crossing or a truck stops, or if there's an accident or something occurs, your car is going to automatically stop for you. Now, I don't know about you. I when I drive, I want to have control. But it's like anything else in the United States. Change or they will make you change. So you either learn how to control yourself when you drive, or they'll make technology so the vehicle does it for you. That's it. No, I mean, it's so much at stake. A life is a precious thing. We've got all these things: Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, all kinds of things. Everybody's lives matter, except for when you get in the car. Think about that. So try it today. When you get off work, no matter how bad of a day it is, in with the good air, out with the bad air. Or put an affirmation on your dashboard. I'm going to drive safe. And so that you got to look at it every day. Whatever you got to do to change your behavior, to become more conscious when you're driving, that's what you got to do. Because remember, driving is not a right. It's a privilege. Dr. Doug here with you, checking out.